Hey, this is Marlon. I would like to talk today about the movie Weapons by Zach Greger. This is not a movie review, but I want to discuss that movie. It was that I rather enjoyed. Um, so, any movie, basically, or any story can be broken down into the three act structure. Some people use the sequence method, like the eight sequences or four or five. It really doesn't matter because at the end of the day, everything can be broken down into three acts: the beginning, middle, and end. That's based on the Aristotle and his book, the Poetics. It's real basic. Basically anything, any story is especially drama or dramatic story, is three acts, right? Beginning, middle, end, the setup, and the rising complications, and then the resolution at the third act. Most writers or storytellers or filmmakers or whoever, they struggle with the second act because it's often the longest act. Usually it's about the length of the first and the third act put together. And it's the time when the character or faces rising complications. And it's also the act where the character usually changes. They change their point of view on the circumstances surrounding them in the story. And one of the difficulties is, how do you change the character's point of view without changing your story? And so many writers and storytellers, in the second act, your story goes off track. You change the character's point of view, but also you end up changing the story a little bit, like the main goal or the main through line of the story, and things go off track. When your story has problems, it's usually in the second act, and it's a real common thing, and it's usually the part that most people struggle with. You have to find a way to keep it interesting without paying off the third act resolution too soon. But you do have to start to pay off some of the things that you set up in the first act while increasing complications for the main character. So it's just the hardest part of the story. Now, what was interesting to me about the movie Weapons is the way the filmmaker, Kreger, the writer-director of Weapons, the way he dealt with that second act. And I thought it was a brilliant idea and a brilliant solution. The way he dealt with the second act is he basically didn't have a second act. What he did instead was he replayed the first act a few more times from different points of view. So we saw it from the main character, the school teacher's point of view, and then he replayed those same events or similar events from the other characters' points of view. It's rather than following the main character into a second act, he replayed the first act a few times. It really worked. It was brilliant. This decision to avoid the second act and replay the first act a few times did two good things. One, it avoided the second act challenges, the common ones that I just mentioned. And number two, it focused on the strength of this movie, which is Kreger's ability to tell a story with a camera. The director of the film is really, really good moving a story with the camera and the sound and everything. And so rather than go into the second act where the story might have gotten bogged down, they just let him keep doing what he does, replaying that first act a couple times. It works because he's such a talented filmmaker. Now, after Kreger retells the first act a couple of times from a few different points of view, then he basically goes right into the third act. Minus there might have been a few transition scenes in between, but basically there wasn't a second act, which is, again, structurally a great idea. So that means the story basically goes first act and then right into third act. What else? What other types of stories are structured in that way? I've always said that the short story is a better structure for a 2-hour movie than, say, a novel, which is better suited for something longer like a limited series. And is in a short story, most short stories, there's always going to be exceptions, but in most short stories, you basically have a setup and then a payoff. You don't really have a second act. That's why it's short, right? And then Kreger's movie, that's basically what it was. But rather, if he did that, it would have been a very short movie. So he replayed the first act a few times from a few different points of view, and then went right into the third act. It's the same you might find in a short story that you might read. So when people look for content to adapt into a movie, and they scour novels, really, if you're looking at the 2-hour movie, the better choice, in my opinion, structurally, is a short story, because a short story only has time for one main action, and the stronger 2-hour movies, the stronger ones, they have one main action throughout that movie. Now, some movies go off and this and that. Okay, you can do that if you want, but the stronger movies and short stories, they have one main action. And novels have the ability to go in whatever direction they want. They can change characters, change points of view. So what is one great solution to the problem of the second act or the second act struggle? Well, if we do what they did in Weapons, you can skip the second act altogether. Set up, payoff. Act 1, transition, and then Act 3. That was a great idea, and it worked. I'll see you in the next one.